he says after he started his business of what he was doing, he has a backpack and he has some tools in there, including a hammer and a flashlight and whatever else in there. And he goes to a side light window and he breaks through. And I think the guy had like a little bed and breakfast out of his home, because there was a couple, as he's going down the hallway, a couple pops out of a room. And he is like, you're not, he tries to verify who they are. He's like, you have nothing to do with this. Go back into your room, shut the door, don't come out. And then he goes down the hallway to the end guy's room, the guy he's after's room, and he's sitting there on the bed, and or he's standing there looking at him, and Jason tells him to sit on the bed, and the guy refused to do it and starts swinging on Jason. Jason had set the backpack down in between them, starts swinging on the guy, and Jason lets him get a few hits in, and he was like, okay, if this is what you want to do. And that's when he pulls out the hammer and he hits the guy like probably 5 or 6 times. First blow is here on his collarbone, and then he hit him here. I think he broke his optical bone, fractured his skull, something along those lines. He hits him until the guy passes out, and then he steals some stuff and he leaves. Now, he's in his vehicle. I think it was a cul-de-sac. He was on his way out of the cul-de-sac. The couple had actually called the police, so the police were already on the way. So as he's exiting the cul-de-sac, all the police are rushing in, and that's how he got caught.
All right. So she got arrested at the scene, basically.
Pretty much, yes.
With stuff that he took from this guy.
And the other 2 guys, yes.
All right. So basically, guys don't just commit crimes like this. I mean, this is something that, as a man, to say, hey, I was molested, it's kind of difficult. And so obviously this had been bothering him his whole life, I imagine. And so it's hard for men to go and say, look, I need some help. This happened to me as a kid and I don't know how to deal with it. That's a difficult thing for a lot of guys to do.
Or even to admit to yourself that I am the way I am because of what happened to me, right?
Yeah, or just to admit, hey, I need help to cope with this, or to move forward past. I mean, hey, look, child molesting to me, or child abuse, physical child abuse, but especially, sexual child molesting is something that in some cases, it destroys those children's lives permanently. Just like a lot of women, if they get raped, it destroys their lives on some level permanently. The damage is, psychological damage is something that some people just can't bounce back from, and they don't know how to ask for help. And so, in their own minds, they decide, hey, this is how I can deal with this. Whether it's getting, a little revenge, a little vengeance, or maybe I'm going to, be the guy who punishes these guys for what they're doing now to younger children. It's a lot of different things, I imagine, that goes on inside somebody's head. So, I mean, he didn't just wake up and decide he's going to go do this out of nowhere. And, so people should understand, like, in a lot of states, in California especially, at one time, I don't know what it's like now, child molesters get very little time. They're looked at as sick, they need help, stuff like that. They don't really, a lot of judges don't look at it as they're criminals. They look at it as they're sick. California used to send them to certain prisons that had mental health programs, and they would treat them, and they would get out and do it again and come right back.
Honestly, in my opinion, it's an untreatable mental disorder.
Well, I can tell you that it's kind of a proven fact that sex offenders, especially child molesters, do not rehabilitate. They do not rehabilitate. You know, California prisons are very violent places, and some guys just for fun, some guys they want to join a prison gang, they want to make their bones. If somebody is a child molester, you know, they stab them and they try to kill them, and it happens a lot in California. It used to happen a lot more, and it's on the rise now. But I mean, and I think a lot of that is because a lot of those guys in there may have been molested as kids, which led them down a path of, you know, criminal behavior, drug abuse, and so, you know, in prison they can stand up and be one of the fellas, you know, hey, I did that, you know, but really they're kind of getting payback for what happened to them as kids, you know, and it's a deep-seated pain, man, that these guys got to live with, you know, and there's also the shame. Maybe they might be feeling some shame, which is actually unfounded because they were children, you know. I mean, so
yes, and I will say this, and Jason is very, very, very. He feels very strongly about this, and somebody actually who works at the prison went on Reddit anonymously, and we ended up finding out who it was and getting her in trouble, but anonymously, and said something about how he doesn't beat up child molesters in prison. And he said, you know why? He was like, because they're not able to molest children while they're in here. You know, they're already away from the children. And he's like what he said was, he said a lot of the pedophile murders and assaults and stuff that happen within prison is not necessarily just because they're pedophiles. It's because, you know, the gangs that they're a part of told them to, or they were paid to do it, or whatever. He was like, I don't get involved in that because they're already away from, you know, the children at this point. They're already locked up. They can't hurt kids while they're in here.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing. He doesn't want to be associated with that kind of crowd. And also, a lot of people mistake his charges were assault and robbery. He never murdered anybody. I know that a 23-year sentence may seem like he murdered somebody, but that's not the case. The judge, so he took a plea deal, just so everybody, I can clear that up for everybody. He actually pled guilty. At first, he went back and said, I will plead guilty as long as I get, the max sentence that I can be given is the combined 3 sentences that the 3 pedophiles that I assaulted served, and then I'll allow you to even add the 3 years of Larry's suspended sentence on there, and that added up to like 9.5 years or something along those lines between the 4 of them, and they laughed him out of the courtroom on that. And so he never denied his crimes. So they offered a plea deal, and it was, I want to say there was about 7 or 8 felonies per pedophile that he was being charged for. So it was somewhere around 21, 22 actual charges. And they said, we'll drop 22 of the, drop the 22 felonies down to only 2 felonies if you plead guilty. And so he took that deal. But the stipulations in the writing were that they can give the max sentence, which the max sentence for both of those was I think 28 years actually, or 30. I think it was 30.
So but he was sentenced to 23 years in prison.
28 years with 5 years suspended and 5 years of parole.
All right. And I've seen Alaskan prisons on TV. They look kind of sparse, limited program. Is he getting he's in prison now, right? He's not in the county jail system, right?
No, so he's been convicted, he's been sentenced, all that. So he's actually in Spring Creek Correctional Center. It's in Seward, Alaska. Now, I've actually been to this prison 3 times to visit him. And I will say this, they just recently gotten a Republican governor. When they had the Democratic governor, they had and he had actually worked for the prison for 30 years. The warden at the prison, he was a very progressive prison. Him and Jason were tight. They were like best buds. And they worked together on a lot of programs. They had a reentry mod that Jason helped lead. So any inmates that were about to be, let out into the world, they were going to get reentry, and they would have a mod that they all lived in. And Jason was a mentor in there amongst a few other guys, and they helped him find jobs. They helped him do resumes. They helped him get ready to go back out into the world. They had all these awesome programs.
So he's working in a pre-release program, basically.
He was.
Yeah.
But then once the new Republican governor was elected, a lot of fundings programs, they just cut them off, and they started pushing back against.
You froze up there for a minute, so
yeah,
a lot of the funding dried up.
Yeah, a lot of the funding was cut. A lot of the programs were denied. They cut them on. They just said nope, nope, nope. They just started instead of trying to rehabilitate. They stripped them of everything. Instead of trying to rehabilitate, they stripped them of everything, basically. And so Jason did take a lot, every course, every class, everything he possibly, every group he could be in, he was in it. And so, yeah.
So he's programming in there, and he's taking like self-help programs and stuff.
Yes.
Or is he involved with vocational training, maybe?
So he was, like I said, he took, and I have a list, and I haven't put it together. Actually, I do have the list, and I can send that list to you of all the accomplishments and certificates and classes he's taken in there. He's taken drug counseling courses, painters courses, like everything to better himself. However, I do have to say this, they do not offer therapy, PTSD treatment, none of that in there. They do have nurses and a doctor. Doctor's not on site, but to prescribe pills, and that's it. They don't do any sort of therapy or treatment.
Like psych meds?
Yes. So the psychiatric ward are going to be the guys who eat they have psych pills, those kinds of things.
Usually psychiatric psych meds usually go hand in hand with some type of psychological counseling,
Yeah, they don't.
It does.
Unfortunately.
So basically, they just want to medicate guys that are having issues and just kind of sweep them under the rug.
Yes. So they do offer courses, but it's like a group that you sit down, and it's like morals and ethics class, or different things. It's like a class. It's never a one-on-one. It's never a one-on-one type of therapy or counseling treatment or anything like that. They don't offer that. So
group sessions are okay, but a lot of times, and with his crimes and his past, the abuse that he suffered, he does need some type of one-on-one therapy. I mean, I think it'd be beneficial to him.
Yes.
My thing with he's a victim, so he needs to be able to move forward. Obviously, dealing with this thing that happened to him, the abuse led him to commit crime. So if they really want to prevent crimes like this from happening in the future, and also to allow somebody to move forward in life, man, they should provide some type of counseling,
They convicted him of molesting. He admitted to molesting them. They took Joel out of the family, but they left Jason there. And nobody went back to check on him. They didn't do house checks. They didn't do well checks. They didn't do anything. And they sent Larry back to be his father figure. And that is a huge fail in my eyes. And I think that if they had done more and done what he deserved, that he would likely have a different life now.
No doubt.
So that's one of my biggest things. And then I think that his sentencing this time around was extreme, very extreme, and that he needs their help. He doesn't need to be punished. Like, he needs help. And he was actually diagnosed with PTSD, and they laughed it out. Yeah, he was diagnosed with it, and they laughed that out of the courtroom as well. So I mean, I can go into. So it was one, I think I told you this, I think I already said this, but he's in for one account of assault and one account of robbery, 23 years. So immediately when he was sentenced, his court-appointed attorney filed for a sentence reduction appeal, okay? And they filed it, and at the state level, it was just recently denied.
All right.
Denied it on the basis that they did not present enough evidence of his PTSD diagnosis. So that being said, we have now petitioned the Supreme Court for the same sentence reduction appeal, with his PTSD, that, saying that they didn't consider his PTSD treatment or his PTSD diagnosis. And most likely the Supreme Court is going to come back and deny that same appeal with the same basis, saying they didn't present enough evidence of his PTSD diagnosis. At that point, which we've already actually filed, we have the option to file for post-conviction relief and start that process. And what that means is that he's entitled to file for post-conviction relief using a court-appointed attorney, going to file against it on the basis, basically stating that his representation at the time of sentencing did not do the bare minimum by presenting enough evidence of his PTSD diagnosis. And so we're working on that. That process has already been started. We're currently in the process of obtaining an attorney because he is up for discretionary parole in July of 2023.
What's discretion? What do you mean? So now, does he have to go in front of like a parole board to get this, to get out on parole?
Sorry, you froze for a second. Yes, so he has to go in front of a parole board. But discretionary parole, from what I understand, and keep in mind, this is like my first experience in any of this type of thing. So from what I understand, discretionary parole, it means that you have to prove to them that you are good to be released out into the world, that you've done everything, right?
So like in my case, they found me suitable for parole.
Right, yes, yeah, if you did it, you were good. And now, keep in mind that Alaska currently is letting almost no one out on discretionary parole right now. And that basically started when the Republican governor came in, Governor Dunleavy. I don't know what's going on. I've talked to a few attorneys up there, and they're like, yeah, it's nearly impossible to get paroled here. They just kind of put a stop to it, basically.
We went through that in California. We had a Republican governor named Pete Wilson, became governor for 8 years, and everyone, like in California, everyone has a set term, except guys who have attempted murders, kidnaps, murders, first, second degree murder. I was given 15 to life. So my sentence was called term to life. 15 is my term. Life is, so if you go to prison, you're a gang member, you're stabbing, drugs, all that, they can keep you for life. But the law says you're supposed to get out a certain time. And he switched it to say life is the term and 15 is the exception. So I ended up doing 38 years. And guys with that same term now are doing 10 to 12 years.
Wow.
So, and then we got another governor after him, Gray Davis, and then Pete Wilson, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they didn't let hardly anyone out. now the federal courts have stepped in and said, hey, you know, these guys don't have life without the possibility of parole, so you have to start releasing them. And so I'm out. But I understand the frustration with the parole board because they're political appointees, you know, usually friends of the governor.
Yes.
And when a new governor comes in and doesn't want to let anyone out, they start replacing the old board members with new appointees. And it was we went 20 years without anybody hardly getting out. So
yeah, and speaking of the parole board, the actual head of the parole board in Alaska right now, she was appointed as the head of the parole board while her son was murdered by some other kids. I think it was her son was like 16, something like that, was murdered by other kids, and that was still the trial and the conviction and all of that was still ongoing when she was appointed as the head of the parole board. And so yeah, and so she is rough, she's tough.
There's no conflict of interest there, is there?
Oh wow, no. Yeah, so that is kind of crazy. So it's a really tough parole board. And then add, you know, our Republican governor, Dunleavy, in there, and they're just a force to be reckoned with. They're not letting anybody out. So that's why, so you're not entitled to a court-appointed attorney for your parole hearing, which is why we are retaining one. Actually, we're hoping to kind of get a collaborative team together to help. We don't have a lot of money. So I've in fact, as I was about to get on here to do this interview, I got her contract over, the one lady. So we're working on that. So what?
In California, when you go to the front of the parole board, you are entitled to a court-appointed, state-appointed attorney.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so that's not the case in Alaska. You go up to the parole board all by yourself if you don't have the money for it.
Sounds like Alaska needs to start pushing for the right to have a representation, just like, you know, I mean, it's a legal procedure. You should have the right to an attorney.
I agree with that.
And so how long has he been in there now?
So we're trying to retain, so we're trying to retain an attorney to help prep and basically advise us on how to prep and represent him at the discretionary parole hearing. So as far as prepping goes, what we'd really like is to get PTSD treatment for him via Zoom or phone. However, the prison, he's already put in a kite to try to talk to them about that. They're like, nope, we don't do that here. Just so you know, just to give everybody a heads up, the prison, there is a bunch of higher up, the warden and, you know, some security people who are completely and 100% against Jason, and they do everything to cut us off at the ankles, everything they possibly can. There are a handful in there who are on our side, but majority do everything to try to mess us up, basically.
Okay, so it sounds to me like you need some advocates in the legal sector to start pushing for treatment and some other, you know, basic things that, you know, California provides a lot of that kind of stuff. People, mental health is a big issue. There's a lot, and a lot of the stuff that we have, like our health care, mental health care, it's come about through lawsuits. So need some advocates in the legal sector to start helping you, because it sounds like you got a pretty crude, and I've seen the Alaskan prison system on TV. It's pretty crude, you know, it's pretty basic.
Alaska is very beautiful, so I don't want to talk too much crap about it as a state in general, but I will say this, that their systems are very they're like stuck in the olden days. They're archaic, right? So they don't have J-pay, for example. I I'm sorry, where we keep freezing. So they're just archaic. They don't have a lot of the things that the lower 48 does. They don't have JPay. They don't have video calling. You can't just call and deposit money onto their account. Like, they have all these weird old school ways that they follow, and it makes it really rough to be able to
you were
support your
saying
family.
like you're only allowed to have like 10 people approved to visit them or something like that?
Yes. So you have to have an approved, in order to actually put money on Jason's books, you have to become an approved visitor. And in order to do that, you actually have to download the application off of the Spring Creek Correctional Center website, fill it out, mail it in, and then you have to pass a background check. And then the prison and Jason both have to approve you. And then once that's the case, then you can, if you want to put money on his books, you can mail in cashiers or money orders, checks, cashiers, checks, or money orders, and you can visit him. However, there's a max of 10 visitors. So like if there's an 11th visitor that wants to be, he has to remove somebody from the list, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of things that,
California used to have approved just to get mail from somebody. You had to get approval. They had to be an approved visitor for you to get mail from them. That they did away with that in the early 70s.
Yeah. So they can get mail, thank goodness. They can get mail. They can get handwritten letters, printed off letters, and they can receive photographs. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah, some of the things you're saying.
Care packages, you can't buy them. They have to buy all stamps or paper or envelopes or anything from the store. They have to purchase that on their own. And also they cap off the amount of money that each inmate can get per month on their books, and it's $500 a month. So let's say, for example, there is a famous person in the prison, Jeffrey Dahmer or, the Tiger King or whoever is in there, and they have all this fan mail coming in, right? And they're writing back all these people. They could spend their $500 just on paper, and you know what I'm saying, per month, and you can't get any more. And I think that's a little ridiculous that they restrict the amount of income that they can have on their books, and then they make them buy their own supplies. So,
well, California, you have to buy your own stamps and paper and pencils and all that, but your family's allowed to send you 2 books of stamps in the mail.
That would be nice.
It sounds like a lot of the stuff that's going on up there that used to go on in California, but like I said, they did away with that stuff in the late 60s, early 70s.
Mm-hmm. And that's
not
the way it is.
And visiting, it's just...
That's the way it is in Alaska, and I'll tell you this, it's funny because this is a little off topic, but if I ever have to deal with anybody in Alaska, like if I need to send money or anything like that to anybody in Alaska, I'm like, do you have PayPal or Cash App or Venmo? And they're like, no. Can you just send it to me? Go to Walmart and send it to me via MoneyGram or via Walmart. I'm like, you can just do it on your smartphone. It takes like 2 seconds and it's free. And they're just like, no, I'm going to drive down to the bank. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So that's just how Alaska is in general. Like they're not with the times. So another thing that they're pushing back on, the prison is pushing back on, is we're looking to try to get Jason a degree while he's in there. We actually have somebody who wants to pay for his degree. We found a degree that he could take. It was a University of Southwest California or something along those lines. It was an online or a via mail course that he could take to get a degree.
Right.
And it was $150 a month. And we had somebody who was like, I'll pay the $150 a month, to get him a degree. So the books, if you buy them brand new, it's about 10 grand, about $10,000 more to get his degree than, you know what I'm saying? And so we needed used books. And so he put in a kite and they're like, nope, we're not allowing used books. So in order for him to take the degree with used books, it's like $9,000. And with the brand new books, it's like $19,000. And
So let me ask
so,
you, how much time does he have left if he doesn't get granted this parole?
so from what I understand, if he doesn't get granted this parole in 2023, most likely, he'll be in for another 10 years.
Well, you know, I mean, I don't know if he wants to be the poster child, but you know, they're not allowed to federally. They're not allowed to restrict your like if you order books from Amazon or something that are used, they're not allowed to restrict that. And he can actually have somebody order the books, send them to him, and then when they refuse them, then he can start legal procedures against the prison system. And I don't know if he wants to be the poster child for that.
Oh yeah.
If he does, he will win.
So
They're
he's
not
in
allowed
a
to do that.
state prison, just so you know. He's not in a federal prison.
Doesn't matter.
So he's in a state prison, not a federal prison. Okay. So I'll tell you this. Here's what I know about the rules.
Prisons.
So here's what I know about the rules at Spring Creek. He can only receive books from approved vendors, okay? And they cannot be used, and they cannot be hardback. And it has to come directly from that approved vendor. Now, Amazon used to be an approved vendor, and it couldn't be from a third party who sold on Amazon, but it could be from Amazon direct, and it had to be brand new and a soft cover paperback. And then there's Barnes and Nobles, and then there's another one that I had never really heard of before. That's an approved vendor. So keep in mind, Amazon had been an approved vendor since 2012. Jason went viral, and there was a month of everybody buying him all these books, and the prison got flooded with all these books. They took Amazon off the approved vendor list within 4 weeks. They were like, no, we decided Amazon's not going to be an approved vendor anymore.
Yeah, they do that. You know, they have approved vendors here and in this state as well. But whoever the approved vendors are, I mean, if they're sending used books in, as long as it's coming from an approved vendor, you know, especially educational books, somebody could file a lawsuit on that and win.
Yeah, so we're working on that. That's one of the things that I want to retain this attorney for, is because we want to get him a degree. They're pushing back on it. We want to get him this treatment. They're pushing back on it. You know, there's a bunch of different things that we're trying to do, and they're trying to cut him off at the ankles at every single turn. So that's what we're working on right now. We also are looking for a PTSD therapist who is willing to donate their time to treat Jason via phone or Zoom inside. So if anybody's out there that, you know, that is willing to do that for Jason, a PTSD therapist, you know, reach out. There's an email address that you can reach out, or you can message on any of the social media sites. But
it seems to me, man, like that system up there needs a serious rehab. You know, politicians, a lot of them make their name by being tough on crime, law and order, and they cater to the prison guards unions and the victims' rights organizations. Basically, in California, they said that the prison guards union ran California. They built 34 prisons. You know, they have the highest paid salary any government worker in California. The victims' rights organizations had way more power than they should have ever been granted. When you start saying, you know, that you don't want people to get out of prison, period, you know, no matter what, it kind of invalidates your position as a victim. You know, you lose my sympathy for sure. When you say someone's unredeemable and you don't want them to ever get out of prison, you lost my support, you know. So, but unfortunately, a lot of politicians cash in on that for their political career, and it leads down a bad road, and the consequences are, I mean, you can look at California. I mean, it's just, we had 180,000 guys in prison out here at one time, and the federal courts had to step in, and, you know, so yeah. Man, It sounds like he's trying to improve his himself as a human being, education. He needs some therapy. Is he amenable to therapy? Like he's open to that?
Mm-hmm.
He is. So,
Yes.
you know, I mean, anyone who's trying to improve their lot in life, to me, I think the system should encourage it and help them do it. But so,
Agreed.
what are some of the things that you are trying to accomplish other than that? I mean, man.
Yes. So, so like the biggest things right now is, so if I have a link tree that has the links to all of our, all of our stuff. We have a link that has a petition that people can sign. Now, keep in mind this petition, and I encourage everybody to sign it. However, we have, and it's on change.org, we have had 2 petitions actually taken down. We had almost 10,000 signatures, I think, between the 2 of them. And I think the reason being is because there's a clause in their terms and conditions that they don't allow the support of a violent criminal or some of that. So I'm not putting all my eggs in that basket, but I do encourage people, because it only takes a few seconds to click and sign, and it at least shows that he has support. You can actually you can at least pull the history, and show that. We have a link. I have a link in there that goes to a Google Drive where we have templates, 2 templates. It's one with an example of a letter to the parole board, and the types of letters that we need to the parole board are letters of support. And I don't mean support like, yes, we support what he did. He needs to get out so he can do more of that. The parole board does not want to hear that.
No.
The parole board wants to hear that I've done, I realize the error of my ways. I am better now. I am going to be a functioning member of society. I'm good. And they want to hear that there's a big support system for him out here, family and friends saying, hey, we're going to have a place for him to live. We're going to have a job for him. That's why we wanted to get him a degree, so that we can have a job waiting. We can have a little nest egg of money for him, so we'll be able to get him a place to live when he's out. You know what I'm saying? So we can go up to the parole board with all of these things. We got his PTSD treated. We got him a degree. We have a job waiting for him. We have money to get him a place to live when he gets out. We have all of this set up, and we've done all of these things, and we have a huge community out here that is going to hold him accountable. We're here to support him and make sure that he follows the rules, that he goes to work every day, that he goes to his parole, meetings and all of that. And that's what we want to hear.
I had to do the same thing. I needed letters of support from the community. I got letters from my family and friends and from the church.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's something they want to know that there's people there to support him and help him get his life on track.
Stay on track, yes. That's exactly right. Yes. And so we're looking for those. You can also, there's also a template on there for letters to the governor, because a lot of people want to say that he should get a presidential pardon, but unfortunately, the president can only help with federal crimes and federal convictions, and he's in state. So it's the governor who can actually help reduce his sentence or
So do they look at him like as a vigilante type guy, or do they understand the situation that led him up to this, or do they look at him as a vigilante trying to make an example out of him? Or
who do you mean by they? Do you mean his supporters, or do you mean the officials?
The prison system, the courts. Do
Yes.
they look at him like a vigilante?
Yes, that's exactly how they look at him. And it probably doesn't help that he actually said to his victims, I am, what did he say? I'm an avenging angel, and I'm here to mete out justice for the people you've hurt. That was literally the sentence he was saying to these people.
So that's why people refer to him as the Avenger.
The avenging angel, yeah. The Avenger, yeah.
All right.
Yes, the Alaskan Avenger, yes.
And the parole board might look at that too. They're going to look at that and say, oh, this guy's, yeah, that's a hard one to overcome, because they're going to worry about him doing it again.
Yes, yes. And that's the thing, is that I do try to get on here, and when I do, you know, lives and videos and interviews and stuff, I always say, you know, I don't condone what Jason did. We understand that what he did was not right, right? And there is a huge support. Well, there's a bunch of supporters out there who do condone what he did, because, you know, all of that, and we appreciate you. But when you're going to write letters to the parole board and things like that, that's not what they want to hear.
Well, you can't write a letter trying to get somebody out of prison, to write a letter to the authorities saying, hey, hooray, you know, we're glad he committed this crime, because to them, what he did was he committed crimes. And you can't, you know, you can't write a letter saying you want some guy to get out of prison by saying that you condone what he did.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And I'm so glad that you understand that, because not everybody does.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. I mean, you've been there, right? So, anyways, so then we have the letters to the governor as well. There's a template on there that you can use. I encourage people, download a copy of it. Don't download the whole thing, because then it pulls it down and other people don't have access to it. You can download a copy of it. And then you can email it to, it's literally jason.vukovich0626@gmail.com. You can you can do it right from your phone, actually. You can do it all electronically.
We'll put up some links with this video for some of the stuff, you know, that and so, man, you know, it seems like he has a lot of things to overcome, not just, you know, personally, but with the system. It just seems like it seems like a backward system, really.
Yeah. Yes. That's exactly right.
I mean, you think about states like Louisiana or Mississippi, and you think, you know, they got some backwards ass shit, redneck, southern redneck stuff going on. Even Texas, you know, people think, you know, they have a, you know, a redneck system going, but when, you know, you're talking about Alaska is a pretty wealthy state because of the oil money that they get from the oil companies. And it seems like they would be using some of that money to rehabilitate the people in prison that need the help, that they, you know, when they get out of prison, they can live normal lives as citizens, you know?
Yes.
So if he was to, do they have like a transitional housing or community release programs?
So they did back when they had the old warden and the Democratic governor. But since basically when they started cutting off funding and cutting off these programs and just pushing back on everything the old warden did. His name is Bill Lipinskis, and he was awesome. He was amazing. Him and Jason would get together and collaborate on all kinds of good, positive stuff on the inside. But they ran him out. He had been working at that prison for 30 years, and they just kept cutting him off at the ankles at every turn, and he ended up resigning. And so a lot of those programs are just gone now. They did, in fact, like I said, Jason pretty much ran and was he was one of the biggest mentors in the reentry program that they did have. Jason likes to talk about, he likes to always say, you know, he does this reference. He's like, you know, Nikola Tesla, he created a factory to produce Teslas. He was like, that is what the prisons are. They are a factory, you know, to produce, you know, criminals, because they want people to reoffend and come back. It's like, it's a factory. It's monetary, you know, for them.
Look about New Mexico prison riot, and it's called the Hate Factory. That's basically what it was. It was a hate factory, you know?
Yep.
Hate, and violence, and madness. That's, you know, prison's not a nice place, man. And if you don't have an outlet for people to learn and grow and get therapy for some of the things they've experienced in their life, you know, you're just breeding a better criminal, or you're breeding someone that doesn't care.
Yes. They dehumanize them so much to the point, and they, you know, it's just, how can you do this to a human and then release them out into the world and expect them to be a decent human being?
Yeah,
you know,
I agree.
so.
Taxpayers pay for the prison system.
Mhm.
And when you pay for something, you get something in return. And I've always said the product that the citizen gets is the guy who walks out of prison every day. And in California, they're getting defective products because the system doesn't do a whole lot. It's changed a little bit in California now, but they don't do a whole lot to give guys much of a shot at getting once they get out, you know.
And you know what?
Hobby and stuff in there.
He used to be able to. They don't. He might be able to get back into it, but right now with COVID,
you froze.
it's kind of the old at the same time, and so we don't know what's going to come back. But yeah, the hobby shop, they were able to make things and learn new skills, and they had a lot going on in there, and a lot of it got cut off and a lot of it got stopped because of COVID. And so I guess when we'll see what comes back.
Yeah.
But and so that's another thing is that this whole cause that I'm fighting for, it's not just for my brother. I like to talk about how this whole Save Our Children movement that's going on, right? The Save Our Children movement, it not only it gives number one, it gives a platform for any survivors to stand up and voice what has happened to them and know that there's a huge backing behind them, so they're not scared. Children knowing that there's this big group of people all over the entire world who support them, you know, that will give them the courage to actually come out and say, this is happening to me, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then also the second thing is I feel that if we have this huge following, this huge group of people who support the cause, it's going to scare, you know, the offenders, the pedophiles, the rapists into thinking twice before offending, you know, before committing another crime such as. So, and then also reform of the prisons, you know what I'm saying? Like, can we please, like, I just don't understand why we're getting cut off every turn we try to do, everything that we try to do. And so anyways, so yeah, so we're seeking anybody who wants to, you know, help with legal counsel, please reach out. PTSD therapy, we're looking for that. We're also searching for a university that he can take, you know, or the inmates up there can take courses. So if anybody has any information on that, yeah. And then we have
Coastline College here in California.
Coastline College?
Yeah, I don't know if they're in other states, but we have Coastline College. They do college in almost all the state prisons in California.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down. Coastline College.
And Pell Grants are now available again for prisoners as well.
In California?
I think nationwide, you can get a Pell Grant once to go to school, and it's available to prisoners.
Okay, good. I wrote that down. But yeah, so if anybody has any information, we do have that's how
breaking up.
Retain the attorney that we are retaining now. Thank goodness we had. I'm sorry, I cut out. We had the GoFundMe and the PayPal, and we're able to raise enough money to retain an attorney, just enough money to retain an attorney to start helping with the preparation for discretionary parole. But yeah, so anyways, yeah, all the things, like we're looking for help in all the ways, and you know, suggestions.
So his parole hearing is in 2023.
July of 2023.
So that's another 2 years. So how long will he have been in prison once he goes to this parole hearing?
I think around 6 years or so.
And so if he gets denied, he'll have another 10 after that?
Like I said, it's just you can come up and apply for discretionary parole again in blah, blah, blah years. They basically, I think the standard, if they don't grant you discretionary parole, the standard that they tell you you can come reapply for discretionary parole in 10 years. That's a standard. Now, I don't know if that is the rule per se, but I feel that that's at least the standard. And I'll know more once I start to meet with these attorneys and talk to them more, so I can actually get what the rules actually are and all of that. I'll be able to know more, but so.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on and telling us your story. And, you know, we're going to put some links up here that you send us your links that you want put on with the video. We'll publish them with the video, let our viewers see them. And anybody interested can log on to them and hopefully help you out.
Yes, and I super appreciate you having me on the show. So does Jason. So.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And, you know, good luck. I do want to say I went to the parole board 14 times before I was released. I canceled 9 hearings. And I told them, you know, you're not going to let me out anyway, so I'm not going to board. And on my 14th hearing, I was released. So whatever happens, just tell them, just keep pushing forward and keep doing the work, you know.
Thank you so much. And yeah, we're gonna keep fighting. So.
Yes, that's right. Okay.
All right. Well, I appreciate you.
That's right. Any last words you'd like to get out there before we wrap this up?
Save the children, you guys. you know, and spreading the word is huge. That is probably the biggest thing. Is you know, sharing and spreading the story to bring awareness. So.
All right. Well.
Appreciate everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You have a good evening. Thanks for coming on our show.
You too.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye.